What's up, everyone? We got another NFL offseason recap video. Today, we're going to be looking at the Oakland Raiders, how their season went last year, what they've done so far in free agency, and what they should be looking for in the draft. The Raiders had a solid but unspectacular season, finishing 7-9 in the regular season and 3-3 in their own division. They had some ups and downs throughout the season, such as beating the Bears in London and putting up a fight against other teams, but they had some very bad stretches, such as losing to the Jets and giving up 28 points in one quarter to Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. Now, their offense as a whole was solid as they completely revamped their offensive line in the past offseason. They added right tackle Trent Brown, as well as adding left guard Richie Incognito to really help get some maulers up front. This led to them having one of the best rushing attacks in the league behind the fearsome trio of Incognito, Rodney Hudson, and Trent Brown, and star rookie running back Josh Jacobs, who was robbed of a Offensive Rookie of the Year title. They also were led by the emergence of tight end Darren Waller, who was a Hard Knocks favorite, who with his massive height and frame, he was able to win jump balls and make plays after the catch. Derek Carr had a solid season in his second year under John Gruden, and while he is a topic of controversy among Raiders fans, he should be their starting quarterback going into next year. Their offense could have been better if they were able to put out a healthy receiving core, as guys like Tyrell Williams and Hunter Renfrow both missed time, which meant cast-offs like Zay Jones were thrust into the starting lineup. With all of that said, the Raiders finished with the ninth best offensive DVOA. Now, their defense, on the other hand, was yet again terrible. They finished with the 31st best defensive DVOA, and most of it can be attributed to their lack of secondary playmakers as well as linebackers. They traded away their number one corner, Garyon Conley, after he has been inconsistent for the past 3 years, leaving guys like Travion Mullen to start at cornerback. On the other hand, you should know that the Raiders' defensive rookie class was pretty solid, as guys like Max Crosby totaled up 10.5 sacks, and Clelin Ferrell had a great learning year where he was put into the starting lineup. I think he was played out of position in the interior on first and second downs because they tried to make him into a run stopper, but I think he grew as a player and a pass rusher. The Raiders should also look to the return of strong safety Jonathan Abram, who hurt his shoulder early in the year, but he has all the makings of being a hard-hitting box safety for years to come, which is what the Raiders wanted out of Carl Joseph, but he wasn't able to develop into that, and Jonathan Abram has the potential to be able to do that. Now, the Raiders didn't make too many moves going into free agency. One of the moves they made was extending scat back Jalen Richard to a 2-year, $7 million extension, while also releasing linebacker Tahir Whitehead, which meant that they could free up some cap space, and he just wasn't a right fit for the defense, which meant his time with the Raiders was over. Now, the Raiders were one of the top teams in terms of how much money they had entering free agency, and they made a ton of moves, especially on the defensive side of the ball. One of the biggest names on the market was linebacker Corey Littleton from the Rams, and the Raiders were able to snatch him up for a solid deal, 3 years, $35 million, to be their new starting middle linebacker. Now, Littleton is more of a coverage guy, which is important in a division that has tight ends such as Hunter Henry and Travis Kelce. So Littleton is able to handle big athletic tight ends as well as getting speed running backs such as Austin Eckler and Damian Williams out of the backfield. Now, they signed Carl Nassib to a 3-year, $25 million contract, and this is to be basically like a rotational pass rusher slash defensive end with guys like Max Crosby and Clelin Ferrell. One of the more underrated signings of the offseason was Nick Kwiatkowski to a 3-year, $18 million contract. When Roquan Smith and Danny Trevathan missed time with the Bears, Kwiatkowski had a very solid run, especially in the interior. And I think the Raiders are going to use him on the outside more to be like an outside pass rusher or like a run stopper. But they got him for a really solid deal for only $6 million. Jeff Heath didn't really understand this because Heath played mainly like strong safety, and they already have Abram, but I think Raiders are just trying to beef up their secondary and just add more bodies to their secondary room. Malik Collins from the Cowboys as well. I think this was an underrated signing. They still have guys like PJ Hall and Maurice Hurst, but none of them are really like exceptional as a pass rusher. And Malik Collins isn't as much of an interior run stuffer, but he is a good interior pass rusher. So I like that signing for them for only $6 million. Demarius Randall from the Browns, he mainly played free safety, and with guys like Eric Harris likely to be playing free safety, it just adds more competition to their secondary room. Kyle Wilber, just a depth move, outside linebacker. Now, the more interesting signing for the Raiders was signing Mariota to a 2-year, $17 million contract. Now, they gave him a contract up to $35 million worth of incentives. This means that if Mariota has a career revival, such as Ryan Tannehill did last year, but for right now, he's getting Tyrod Taylor money to basically be a backup to Derek Carr, and he's a solid insurance policy in case Derek Carr gets hurt. Signing Jason Witten to a one-year $4 million contract, surprising to me because they already have Darren Waller and Foster Moreau, so I didn't really see the need to go after another tight end. He could possibly just be a mentor player and just another guy that can block and be a safety blanket for Derek Carr. Signing Nico O'Leary just adds to that tight end group again. Don't really understand the signing when they have two solid tight ends on the roster, but I think they're just adding more veteran experience and guys that will compete for a starting job in training camp. And then finally, the move that I really didn't like, signing Nelson No Hands Aguilar to a one-year, $1 million contract. If you're an Eagles fan, you pretty much hate this guy. This guy's ruined your team for the past couple of years with all his drops. Maybe he'll have a career revival with the Raiders, but like I said, the Raiders just seem to be the place where everyone tries to have a bounce back season. So they signed Zay Jones last year in the middle of the season. He didn't do anything. Maybe Aguilar will be different, but I don't see that happening. And I think Tyrell Williams and Hunter Renfrow are way better than Aguilar has or will ever be. The Raiders basically kept everyone on their offense. They let a couple of defensive guys go to other teams. Benson Mayowa, one of their sack leaders with 7 sacks, went to the Seahawks. Released linebacker Tahir Whitehead went to the Panthers, and first round bust from West Virginia, Carl Joseph, he went to the Browns. So basically, Carl Joseph and Damaris Randall switched teams. Now on to the draft. If you're Mike Mack and John Gruden, do not overthink this. You need to draft a receiver at pick 12. This is a top-heavy receiver draft with guys like Jerry Jeudy, CeeDee Lamb, Henry Ruggs, and T. Higgins, all four of them with Pro Bowl and possibly all-pro potential that you can get at pick 12. In my opinion, I think the best player for them is Jerry Jeudy, even though he's the second best player on my wide receiver board. I think Judy's route running and his yards after the catch potential outranks CeeDee Lamb, who's more of like a big play threat, and Derek Carr is more of like a check down slant, like slants over the middle guy. So I think Jerry Jeudy is the best for their offense. I think at pick 19, it should be corner or linebacker. Now, you might think, okay, they already have Littleton, Kwiatkowski, like why do they need another one? Well, there's some really solid linebackers in that 19th pick value range, guys like Patrick Queen and Kenneth Murray. But I think cornerback is the best play for them. And there's 3 cornerbacks in the mid teens that really have value, and that's Trayvon Diggs, C.J. Henderson, and Christian Fulton. But if you look at all three of them are very different. C.J. Henderson is a press man-to-man physical guy, but Raiders under Paul Gunther run a lot of cover too. So you want a press zone type of coverage cornerback. So you're gonna find that in Trayvon Diggs, who is mainly a press zone guy, which is what Alabama runs, and Christian Fulton's more of like a cover 3, possibly a cover 4 guy who doesn't really press up. He's more of like a make plays based on what the receiver runs, and so I think Trayvon Diggs is the best value pick for them at 19 in their press zone scheme. The Raiders should also double dip at receiver in the third or fourth rounds, just add more to their wide receiving room, create some competition at training camp. They should also look to add to their linebacking room as they really have no depth behind Littleton and Kwiatkowski, and finding an offensive guard to compete with or possibly replace Gabe Jackson at right guard, who was a liability for them at times last season, and possibly Richie Incognito, who's back on a one-year deal, is a need for the Raiders as well. That's all for this NFL offseason recap on the Las Vegas Raiders. Don't forget to comment what do you think the Raiders record will be in 2020 and who you think they should take in the draft, and subscribe.